Today, an official welcome home for thousands of Defence Force personnel who served in Afghanistan. Also ahead, the government under fire over a damning report into the treatment of asylum seekers on Nauru. More than 100 people slain in a series of terror attacks targeting Yemeni Shiites. And Australia to take on India for a spot in the Cricket World Cup final after a hard-earned win against Pakistan. Hello, you're watching ABC News. I'm Rachel Pupazzoni. Military parades have been held across the country in honour of Afghanistan veterans, officially marking the end of Australia's longest ever military operation. Thousands of people have turned out to officially welcome troops in ceremonies across the nation. Since Operation Slipper began in 2001, more than 33,000 members of the Defence Force, Public Service and Federal Police have been deployed to Afghanistan and the Middle East. The Prime Minister attended the Canberra ceremony today. Tony Abbott praised the service of the Australian Defence Force and also paid tribute to those who were killed in Afghanistan.
We mourn the 41 who died. We grieve with the 262 who suffered serious physical wounds, and we acknowledge the unseen wounds of hundreds more. Your mission is over. But our mission to stand with you and to support you continues. Australians didn't fight to conquer. We fought to protect, to help and to build. Afghanistan is a better country because Australia was there. Thanks to you, there are girls' schools, roads and bridges where formerly there were none. Thanks to you, the Afghan National Security Forces have been and continue to be trained. Thanks to you, the world has seen once more that we are a reliable ally. And thanks to you, the world is safer. Today, we remember everyone who wore our uniform and served in our name. You did your duty. You are worthy heirs to the Anzac legacy.
It's been a proud day for families of military personnel. Stephanie Cannon's husband Scott is in the Navy. He was deployed 3 times in Afghanistan. She had 2 sons during Operation Slipper. Ms Cannon says the family was thrilled to be at the parade in Canberra this morning.
My husband, Scott Cannon, he has done 3 deployments for Operation Slipper, and we have 2 little boys who are very proud of their daddy who want to come and watch, so that's why we're here today. We've lived with the fact that this is our life, so we just kind of have a smile and get on with the attitude. The boys are used to daddy going away because he's done 14 deployments, and we have very positive. We look at it in a very positive way. We tell the boys daddy's doing things to help his country. They're very proud of him doing that. Some days are sad and we have a little bit of a cry, and then we pick ourselves up and carry on. I felt very emotional today. I'm not an emotional person, but it had a lot of relevance to us because my husband's missed out on such a lot of our boys' lives to do this, and it just made me feel very proud that he does it. Very proud.
An independent review has detailed disturbing claims of sexual assault and drugs for favours within the Nauru detention centre. The report also reveals 2 women and a child were allegedly raped in the Australian-run facility.
With the flags at Parliament House respectfully fluttering and the nation mourning a former Prime Minister, the government pressed on with the release of a much-anticipated report.
I think any suggestions, frankly, from you or from anybody else, this relates to Malcolm Fraser's death, I just find quite an appalling question, to be honest.
Since October, abuse allegations at the Nauru detention centre have been examined by former Integrity Commissioner Philip Moss, and some of the report's text is troubling. At least 2 women have reported being raped. Other asylum seekers fear for their safety or are worried about privacy. It's possible security guards were trading marijuana for sexual favours, and one woman says a guard allegedly offered her friend chewing gum and a lollipop if she allowed him to see her naked. The allegations are still being investigated.
You don't want to place anyone in a position where, for instance, a child is the subject of unwarranted and indeed completely depraved sexual attention.
If people have information, they should bring it forward. And as I say, I have a zero tolerance for any form of sexual abuse.
The government says the vast majority of asylum seekers in immigration detention are being well looked after. It's agreed to and begun work on the report's 19 recommendations. Several focus on improving the way physical and sexual abuse allegations are investigated on Nauru. The review was partly set up to examine allegations that staff from aid organisation Save the Children had fabricated or exaggerated stories of abuse in the centre in a bid to damage Australia's border protection policies.
There's nothing in this report that suggests that they did anything wrong.
She's demanding the government apologise. James Glenday, ABC News, Canberra.
The opposition's immigration spokesman Richard Marles has labelled as a disgrace the government's response to the review of sexual assault allegations at the Nauru Immigration Detention Centre.
In the last 24 hours, the handling of the Moss review represents an appalling low, even for this government. The Moss review details serious allegations of sexual assault within the detention facilities on Nauru. The Moss review finds that the testimony of asylum seekers is convincing, and it concludes that the degree of sexual assault within these detention facilities is being underreported. This is quite evidently shocking. Now, when these allegations first surfaced last year, the then Minister for Immigration, Scott Morrison, in typical style, sought to shoot the messenger. He said, and I quote, "The public don't want to be played for mugs with allegations being used as some sort of political tactic." Without properly speaking to Save the Children, 10 of its staff were removed from Nauru, the implication being that they had been involved in inciting protest. And all of that was provided to editors of newspapers here in Australia before the government sat down with Save the Children itself. The Moss review makes perfectly clear that these actions of the government were a disgrace. And what the Moss review really shows is that this is a government more concerned about the potential for protest than it is about the sexual assault of minors. This is a government which has lost its moral compass. And then to seek to bury this review yesterday afternoon, effectively in the dead of night, after what that morning had become a solemn day for our nation, is a disgrace. And when the Minister accompanied the release of this review with the words that this government has a good story to tell, it shows that this Minister has lost any connection between the difference of right and wrong. Now, Labor supports offshore processing because we wanted to see an end to the tragedy of people losing their lives at sea. But that does not mean that asylum seekers are the enemy. And if we owe asylum seekers anything, and we do, it is that the facilities that we provide afford asylum seekers with safe, dignified and humane refuge. And so long as there is sexual assault going on within them, then that is an obligation which Australia is failing to meet.
A 44-year-old man who was shot by police in Perth overnight has died from his injuries. Officers responding to a domestic incident in the southern Perth suburb of Hamilton Hill were allegedly attacked by the man who was armed with a weapon. He was shot once in the stomach. The WA Major Crime Squad is investigating the incident. Victoria's annual duck hunting season is underway. Officers from government departments and Victoria Police are patrolling the state's wetlands to make sure hunters and protesters abide by the rules. Protesters say they're targeting the Kerang wetlands in northwest Victoria in their ongoing campaign to end what they call an outdated blood sport. A 25-year-old man has been charged with reckless wounding after an altercation at a Sydney hotel early this morning. The man allegedly threw a glass at the victim at a hotel in Manly following an argument over cigarette smoke. The victim suffered 2 deep cuts to his face and was taken to hospital for treatment. Fire crews have saved the iconic Exchange Hotel at Kilcoy, north of Brisbane, after a blaze broke out last night. 6 crews battled the fire and evacuated people from the building. 10 firefighters were treated for exhaustion. 1 was taken to hospital as a precaution. Authorities say the fire was contained to the kitchen and an administration office, but say it's too early to tell what caused the blaze.
I helped make sure everyone was away from the gas bottle area because I knew where the gas bottles were and all that sort of thing, and there was people using the walkway, so I made sure everybody was out on the street away from the hotel, knowing where the explosive areas could have been.
Overseas, a series of attacks against Shiites in Yemen has killed more than 100 people. 3 suicide bombers detonated explosives at 2 Shia mosques in the capital Sana'a during Friday prayers. A government compound in Sada city in northern Iraq was also targeted.
The attackers knew the mosques would be packed for Friday prayers. In the heart of Yemen's capital Sana'a, 2 mosques were targeted. Both belong to the Zaydi sect of Shia Islam, the power base for Houthi fighters who control the capital. Witnesses say the first explosion was inside the Badr Mosque. Another went off at the gate when people fled. More attackers targeted the Hashosh Mosque. Rescuers struggled to deal with the high number of casualties. One after the other, dozens of bodies were taken out. The hospitals appealed for blood donations. The attacks happened a day after intense fighting at the airport in the southern port city of Aden. That's where Yemen's President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi has been trying to build a power base, ever since he was forced out of the capital by the Houthi advance. For hours, intense battles raged between his supporters and fighters who support another former president, Ali Abdullah Saleh. As these skirmishes continued, unidentified airstrikes hit the presidential compound in another part of Aden. Houthi leaders denied they were behind the attacks on Aden and accused Hadi of colluding with Al-Qaeda.
What's happened today is a crime to be condemned by everyone in Yemen. The blame lies on those supporting suicide attacks. Everyone knows in Yemen that there is a coalition between Salafists, the Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda and Hadi. The coalition is being supported by regional countries and international powers.
There has been unrest elsewhere as well. These tribesmen loyal to Hadi say they're carrying out military maneuvers to prepare for any Houthi advances.
We need to defend ourselves. We hope nothing serious will happen. But if the enemies want to attack us, we will also attack them.
We can't trust the Houthis or any dialogue with the Houthis. We have no confidence in any agreement signed by them. The Houthis have not respected any agreement till now.
The battle to control Yemen is between Shia Houthis, Sunni tribes and Al-Qaeda fighters. And as the fighting continues, more Yemenis are dying.
A London teenager has been sentenced to 22 years in jail for planning to behead a British soldier. The 19-year-old man had converted to Islam in early 2014. The court was told he intended to emulate the murder of Lee Rigby in South London and had used the internet to research army bases. He was arrested last August. Police say he had visited his girlfriend and shown her the knife and hammer he said he would use to attack and kill British soldiers. Talks over Iran's nuclear program have broken up following the death of the mother of the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. The Iranian negotiators are flying back to Tehran, and plans for European foreign ministers to join the discussions have been put on hold. It had been hoped an outline agreement could have been reached by today, ahead of the self-imposed deadline at the end of the month for a final agreement. Talks will resume next week. The Antarctic icebreaker Aurora Australis is struggling against pack ice as it travels to Davis Station to retrieve a seriously ill expeditioner. The ship is now expected to arrive late today or early tomorrow and will spend at least 24 hours refuelling before transferring the patient by helicopter. He remains in a serious but stable condition. The journey back to Hobart is expected to take about a fortnight. Pablo Picassos' electrician in France has been given a 2-year suspended sentence after hiding millions of dollars worth of the artist's work. A court in southern France found Pierre Le Guenec and his wife Danielle guilty of possessing stolen goods. The electrician said Picassos' last wife had given him the collection of more than 270 paintings, sketches and collages as a gift. The works were discovered when he took them to Picassos' son for authentication. Millions of people across Europe have been treated to one of the most spectacular sights of nature, a rare solar eclipse. In the UK, the eclipse reached at least 80%, while in the Faroe Islands, skywatchers were plunged into complete darkness.
In the heavens above us, where the dance never ends, a special show was in store today. On the earth below, like pilgrims to the temple, millions flocked to watch. And where the weather gods smiled, they were in for a treat.
There hasn't been an eclipse in a long time, so it's going to be good.
I'm really excited to see it.
It was a slow burn, and it began in the southwest of England. This was the view from Plymouth as the moon began to nibble away at the sun. But the real drama was in the frozen north. For a few minutes in the Faroe Islands, day turned to night. The land fell dark and still, as a glinting ring of fire was consumed by blackness. For the UK, it was only a partial eclipse, but there was still drama and mystery as Stonehenge got a tantalising glimpse through the clouds. On the Orkney Isles too, the skies cleared at just the right moment.
We woke thinking it was going to be cloudy, and there's enough sun that with our very fashionable eclipse viewers we can take it all in.
In Cardiff, stargazers brought the streets to a standstill.
It's so cool. There was beauty to it that was very awe-inspiring.
And in Leicester, pupils from 60 schools gathered to watch, all together.
Red, and it's got black over it.
It's very special because it doesn't happen that often. And I heard the next one's probably in 75 years.
Yeah, that's a sunspot, but that sunspot's about the size of the Earth.
Here in Dundee, Scotland's sunniest city lived up to its name. The view was so good, they quickly ran out of solar glasses at the observatory. For novices and experts alike, it was a rare treat.
This is the sun. In China 3,000 years ago, when there was an eclipse, they went out with gongs and drums to frighten the dragon away that was eating the sun. And there were even a couple of astronomers who failed to predict an eclipse, and they were executed.
You'll be hoping to avoid that fate, as you've predicted it today.
That's right, yes.
Well, we're right in the heart of this eclipse now. There's just a tiny crescent of the sun visible through these glasses, and there's no doubt about it, the skies here have darkened. For many people standing under the moon's shadow, it felt colder too. It'll be 11 years before the UK sees another event like this one, and the best part of a century before there's a total eclipse here. So for those who witnessed today's dance in the skies, it was a moment to treasure.
Former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser is being remembered as a stabilising force who was steadfast in his values. The 84-year-old died yesterday. He was Prime Minister between 1975 and 1983. Current and former Prime Ministers have been leading the tributes. John Howard was a minister in Fraser's cabinet. He says Malcolm Fraser remained passionate about public issues right to the end.
He still retained a great affection for rural Australia. He had a genuine compassion for people in the bush, but he was also a person who remained intensely interested in public issues. I mean, until he died. Somebody said the other day he sent a tweet 3 days ago. I mean, I don't tweet, but I mean, good luck to him. He still remained very, very interested in public issues, and there's nothing wrong with that. Every former Prime Minister makes their own alternative life in whatever way they feel comfortable with.
The federal government is expected to release the final version of its long-term plan for the Great Barrier Reef. The significant decline of the reef has meant the United Nations World Heritage Committee is considering declaring it in danger. A draft version of the report was criticised by some scientists as being a plan for sustainable development rather than protecting and conserving the reef. The new Queensland government sought urgent amendments to the plan. The ABC understands the updated version will include more information on the government's ban on dumping in the marine park. Extra emergency crews sent to Cooktown in far north Queensland are beginning to leave today as life begins to return to normal following the passing of Cyclone Nathan. The system is now a weak Category 1 and moving west, as Shani Kim reports.
Been very few outstanding issues left over from Cyclone Nathan. Some of the most serious issues were probably a few damaged roofs in town, including at the hospital maintenance shed, but that already appeared to be fixed up when I checked on it yesterday. Another issue, of course, was power. About 480 customers in the nearby Hopevale and Endeavour Valley area lost power for most of yesterday, but that's been restored as well to all but one customer. And of course, another concern was for the banana crop at the nearby Aboriginal community of Hopevale, one of the biggest employers in town. They ended up suffering about damage to about 30% of their crop, but given the circumstances, they had been expecting a much worse impact, and so they're quite happy. And they're also saying that they managed to harvest and truck out a lot of the fruit before there were any serious problems. And so there were otherwise no real issues further west of here either, as the cyclone passed into the Gulf of Carpentaria overnight. Cowanyama, a community on the Western Cape, received about 40 millimetres of rain, and the Bureau of Meteorology says that some of those areas in Western Cape, York and the Gulf of Carpentaria should get some heavy falls today, but nothing out of the ordinary for a wet season in far north Queensland.
Australia will take on India for a spot in the Cricket World Cup final after a shaky quarter-final win against Pakistan. The Aussies' 6-wicket victory was much more comfortable on paper than it was in reality. Shane Watson was given an early lifeline before going on to score a crucial half-century. Chasing 214, the hosts lost 3 early wickets and Watson endured a vicious fast bowling spell from Wahab Riaz. He gave Pakistan an opportunity on just 4 runs.
It's a top edge, down the throat, a fine leg. Oh, he's dropped it! Can you believe it? They built that wicket up for the last couple of overs and he claims it.
Both Watson and Riaz have been charged for breaching the ICC Code of Conduct for their running battle, the details of which are yet to be released. Steve Smith's 65, along with an unbeaten 44 from Glenn Maxwell, helped Australia home, but Clark knows his side will need to improve if it's to defeat India on Thursday.
I think they're obviously playing a lot better than they were throughout the start of the summer. And I said that leading into the World Cup that I thought India were going to be an extremely tough team to beat just because, well, obviously because they're a very good team, but because they've spent so much time in Australia as well, they know the conditions quite well.
North Queensland captain Jonathan Thurston has labelled his side's performance against the Broncos last night as embarrassing. While the Bulldogs outlasted Manly 16 points to 12, the Broncos smashed the Cowboys in the Queensland Derby. The Cowboys have now started the NRL season with 3 straight defeats. They conceded 8 tries in the 44 points to 22 loss. Thurston was furious with his side's commitment.
I'm pretty embarrassed. Last year we based our game on defence and we're like turnstiles there in the first 3 rounds, so we've got a lot of work to do.
And Manly coach Jeff Tuvey refused to blame the dodgy Brookvale oval surface for his side's loss to the Bulldogs. Brisbane has stolen an unlikely draw with the Gold Coast in its final AFL pre-season challenge match. Geelong recruit Alan Christensen kicked his first major for the Lions with his first possession, but it was ruckman Michael Leuenberger who saved the visitors with just 20 seconds remaining.
Over the top, Leuenberger, no one there, can you believe it? Scores a level.
There was a thrilling finish in Melbourne as well, with a young Bombers outfit snatching a 2-point win over the Demons. The Melbourne Rebels have suffered a heartbreaking Super Rugby loss, going down to the Lions 20-16 in the final minutes of their Round 6 clash. After starting with great promise, the Rebels led the South African side 13-0 with just 14 minutes on the clock. But the hosts were reduced to 14 men because of a dangerous tackle, allowing the Lions back in the game. They completed the comeback in the dying stages.
Oh, it goes to Mapo! Mapo goes through! Mapo has rocked the Rebels!
Earlier, the Hurricanes remained the only unbeaten side in the competition, downing the Highlanders 20 points to 13. Sydney FC has missed its opportunity to take top spot on the ALeague ladder for the first time in 5 years, courtesy of a surprise 1-0 loss to Melbourne City. After squandering numerous opportunities in front of goal, the Sky Blues were caught out on a counter-attack.
Early ball play to James Brown. He's onside. James Brown skips around one and scores on his return to the senior team.
The result secured City's place inside the top 6 for another week. Next up is 7th placed Brisbane.
Against them, of course, especially it's a 6-pointer, and that's why we will prepare ourselves, and we know that that's going to be a big final.
A mysterious photograph taken in Iran has taken out one of Australia's biggest photography prizes. The winning photographer is a young woman also from Iran. She migrated to Australia several years ago, and her image bridges the huge distance between her past and present lives.
Hoda Afshar picked up her cameras and her life to move to Melbourne from Tehran 8 years ago. Several years later, it was to Iran she returned to take this shot.
I found out about this village that exists above the cloud, and I never heard of it.
Emerging from the fog, a young boy.
He extended his hand and he was like, aluche, aluche, which means little berries. And he smiled and started like swinging off the trees, picking more berries.
Shot on film, it was a month before Hoda Afshar returned to Australia to get the image processed. But she knew from the moment she took it, it would be worth the wait.
There's a moment, I think every photographer experiences it, that you know you have something special in there.
The result captivated the judges.
You wanted to know more about it, which is a huge factor when you're looking at so many entries.
Many of the finalists in this year's National Photographic Portrait Prize focus on the vulnerability of youth, like this shot taken of a 17-year-old Newcastle boy and his brand new baby daughter.
Compelling subjects, and it seemed to us subjects that together showed the huge diversity of the country.
There's darkness and light and levity. The prize is a snapshot of the many faces of modern Australia.
It's fascinating to see what's on the collective mind of Australian portrait photographers.
A powerful portrait lets the mind's eye wander from the deep lines of memory to the crossed paths of history. Images that capture both the fleeting and the eternal. That's the power of the human face. Siobhan Hinu, ABC News, Canberra.
Let's take a look at the satellite. Tropical cyclone Nathan is moving over the Cape York Peninsula, bringing gales, heavy rainfall and isolated thunderstorms. A broad low-pressure trough over northern Western Australia, the Northern Territory and Western Queensland is triggering thundery showers. Looking around the country, wind easing and rain clearing over far north Queensland. Showers and storms are expected over the central and southeast parts of the state. In New South Wales, storms in the north, showers on the central coast and sunny across the southwest. It'll be mostly sunny and warm in the north of Victoria, milder in the south with increasing sunshine throughout the day. Tasmania can expect early fog before a mostly sunny day, except for some possible early drizzle on the north coast. A mostly sunny day across South Australia with light to moderate winds. It'll be mild in the south and hot in the northwest. In Western Australia, it will be hot with scattered showers and storms in the east of the state, cooler conditions and showers in the southwest, showers and thunderstorms for the Kimberley. In the Northern Territory, isolated showers and storms in the north and very warm in the centre. Looking ahead to tomorrow's forecast, showers and a possible storm in Brisbane, a shower or two in Sydney. It'll be sunny in Melbourne. Adelaide will be mostly sunny, partly cloudy for Hobart and Perth, and a possible storm for Darwin. The top stories from ABC News. Thousands of Defence Force personnel have taken part in parades across the country to mark the end of Australia's military operation in Afghanistan. Operation Slipper commenced in 2001 and was Australia's longest ever deployment, with more than 34,000 troops sent to the Middle East. During the mission, 41 ADF personnel were killed and another 261 were wounded. The federal opposition has called the government's response to a review of sexual assault allegations at the Nauru Immigration Detention Centre a disgrace. The independent Moss review found evidence of rape, sexual assaults of minors and guards trading marijuana for sexual favours. The government has promised to implement the review's 19 recommendations. Suicide bombers have killed more than 100 people and wounded dozens of others in the Yemeni capital, Sana'a. The attackers struck at 2 mosques during Friday prayers. Both places of worship are used by supporters of the Shia rebels. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility. And Australia will take on India for a spot in the Cricket World Cup final after a shaky quarter-final win against Pakistan. The 6-wicket victory was hard-earned, with Shane Watson forced to endure a vicious fast bowling spell from Wahab Riaz. Australia plays India on Thursday. And those are the latest headlines from ABC News. And that is ABC News for now. I'm Rachel Pupazzoni. A reminder, though, that you can keep up to date on all the stories we're following by visiting our website. The address, abc.net.au/news. Do stay with us. State to State Summer is next.